Welcome to 21st Sports Recap and Reaction for the Denver Broncos at the Pittsburgh Steelers in their Week 15 matchup played December 20th, 2015. We're going to go over every possession, the stats, and give our breakdown and analysis. So the Broncos were looking to shore up the AFC West with a win, and that would also give the Bengals the North, but the Pittsburgh Steelers had other ideas as they were looking to make a push for the playoffs themselves and keep themselves alive, not only in the AFC North, but also in the wild card hunt. And so Pittsburgh got the ball first in this game, but they would end up punting after 6 plays, and now the Broncos would take over, backed up against their own end zone on their own 9-yard line, and then on 2nd and 9 from the 10, Hillman fumbles, Allen forced the fumble, Mitchell recovered, and now Pittsburgh would take over on the Denver 21 after the fumble. Roethlisberger went to D'Angelo Williams. He picked up 19 yards and a first down that made it 1st and goal on the 2. And then D'Angelo Williams scores from 2 yards out. Boswell adds the extra point, and it was 7-0 Pittsburgh over Denver with about 10 minutes still left in the first. So now the Broncos would take over on their own 15 after the kickoff. They brought the ball to midfield, and they got into Pittsburgh territory. Osweiler got sacked on a 1st and 10 from the Pittsburgh 36 as he fumbled the ball but recovered. And so now it was 2nd and 17. He went to Sanders for 9 yards. And then on 3rd and 8, he went to Norwood for 16 yards to make it a first down in the red zone at the 18. And then on 3rd and 10 from the 18, Brock Osweiler hit Demaryius Thomas for an 18-yard touchdown. Brandon McManus added the extra point, and this game was tied up at 7 apiece. Just under 5 minutes still left in the first. Pittsburgh would go 3 and out on their next possession, and now the Broncos would take over on their own 39 with about 3 minutes left in the first, and Brock Osweiler airs it out to Emmanuel Sanders, a 61-yard touchdown, and with the extra point by McManus, it was 14-7. So now Pittsburgh would take over after the touchback on the kickoff on their own 20. They got up towards midfield, but on 1st and 10 from the 42, Roethlisberger was intercepted by Bush, and so now Denver would take over at midfield at the 50. They brought the first quarter to a close, and they got into Pittsburgh territory in the second quarter all the way down into the red zone. They got all the way to the 1-yard line, but then they ended up losing 6 yards to push him back to the 7 for 3rd and goal, and Brock Osweiler takes it in himself, a 7-yard touchdown run. McManus went for the extra point, but it was no good, and so it would be 20-7. So now Pittsburgh would get the ball with about 11 and a half minutes left before halftime. They had it on their own 21. They got up to midfield. They got into Denver territory, and then some penalties would push them back, but then on 3rd and 20 from the 46, a pass interference call against the Broncos would make it a first down at the Denver 22, and then they got into the red zone, but they would not be able to get into the end zone, and they would have to settle for a 24-yard field goal. It was up, it was good, and now it was 20-10 as the Steelers cut the Broncos' lead to 10 with about 7.5 minutes still left in the first half. So now Denver would take over after the touchback on the kickoff, and they wasted little time getting into Pittsburgh territory. Of course, things slowed down a little bit once they got onto that side of the field. Then on 3rd and 1 from the 22, Hillman ran it 14 yards to the 8 for a 1st and goal as he got into the red zone, and then would bring the game to the 2-minute warning. And coming out of the 2-minute warning on 2nd and goal from the 6, Brock Osweiler hit Demaryius Thomas for a 6-yard touchdown. McManus added the extra point, and now it was 27-10. Denver in the lead by 17 with just 2 minutes left, less than 2 minutes left before halftime. Pittsburgh would get the ball after the kickoff, and then they were faced with a 3rd and 2 from the 34, and Roethlisberger went to Bryan. He picked up 11 and a first down at the Pittsburgh 45. Then on 3rd and 13 from the 42, Roethlisberger went to Antonio Brown. He picked up 16 yards and a first down in Denver territory at the 42. Roethlisberger then went to Wheaton. He picked up 14 yards and a first down at the 28. But then time was running out, and they would have to settle for a 41-yard field goal as time expired in the first half. Boswell put it through the uprights, and so now it was 27-13. Of course, Denver would actually end up with the ball and take a knee to bring it to the half. But the Broncos up 27-13 at halftime, looking like they were in control of this game. Of course, with that stellar defense, it did seem as if they were going to come away with the W, but there was still 30 minutes of football left to play, and the Steelers weren't done just yet. The Broncos would end up punting on their first possession of the second half after 5 plays. The Steelers would then be held to a 3-and-out, but then the Broncos would go 3-and-out, and now the Steelers would take over on their own 42 with about 10.5 minutes left in the third. And they would end up letting up a sack as Jackson sacked Roethlisberger, and there was a holding penalty, but it was declined. But that would push the Steelers back. But Roethlisberger went to Brown, he picked up 8 yards, and then he went to Wheaton, he picked up 13. Now it was a first down in Denver territory at the 46. Then on 3rd and 9 from the 45, Roethlisberger goes to Bryan, he picks up 10. There was a defensive holding call, but that was declined. And so it was a first down at the Denver 35 and another penalty. This one a pass interference call against the Broncos, and that made it a 1st and goal at the 9. Set the Steelers up in the red zone. And on 1st and goal, Roethlisberger went to Antonio Brown, a 9-yard touchdown. Boswell added the extra point, and it was now a 7-point game with the score Denver 27, Pittsburgh 20. So that was with a little over 7 minutes still left in the third. The Broncos would then punt after 4 plays on their next possession. And now Pittsburgh would end up getting the ball. And they had it on their own 3-yard line, backed up against their own end zone. They were able to get out of the shadow of their end zone, but on 4th and 5 from the 35, they would punt the ball, and on the punt, Norwood returns it 71 yards for the touchdown. But wait a minute, there was an extra man on the field, as the Broncos had thought that the play was dead, and so they went to substitute in the middle of the return, and so that would bring it back, as the penalty would be called against the Broncos. So instead of a touchdown, they would take over on their own 28. They brought the third quarter to a close as Hayward sacked Osweiler on the final play of the third quarter. And now on the first play of the fourth quarter, the Broncos would end up punting the ball to the Steelers. So Pittsburgh would take over on their own 40, and they got into Denver territory pretty quickly. Now on 1st and 10 from the Denver 32, Roethlisberger went to Wheaton, he picked up 13 yards. And another penalty against the Broncos, this one for unnecessary roughness, and now is a first down in the red zone at the Denver 10, 1st and goal. And then on 2nd and goal from the 9, Roethlisberger to Marcus Wheaton, the 9-yard touchdown. Boswell adds the extra point, and this game is tied at 27 apiece with 12.5 left to play. So now the Broncos would go 3-and-out on their next possession. Pittsburgh would be held to a 3-and-out as well. And then the Broncos went 3-and-out for the third consecutive possession here, stretching back to the third quarter. But then the Steelers went 3-and-out for the second consecutive possession. And now the Broncos would take over on their own 11 with about 5.5 minutes left to play in this game. And then on 2nd and 7 from the 27, after having picked up a first down a couple plays earlier, Osweiler drops back and he's intercepted by Ryan Shazier. Shazier with the interception, and now the Steelers would take over at the Denver 37 with about 4.5 minutes left to play. And after picking up a first down, they were faced with a 1st and 10 on the 23. Roethlisberger goes to Antonio Brown, and it's a 23-yard touchdown. Boswell adds the extra point, and it's 34-27 as the Steelers score 24 straight points to take the lead after having been down 27-10 with just under 2 minutes left in the first half. So they got that field goal before halftime. And then here in the second half, 21 points unanswered. And now the Broncos would take over after the kick on their own 40. And so now Denver would end up getting into Pittsburgh territory, but they would be faced with a 4th and 5 on the Pittsburgh 36. And with just over 2 minutes left, a field goal would do them no good. And so they elected to go for it on 4th down. Osweiler then throws an incomplete pass, and good defense by the Steelers would force the Broncos to turn the ball over on downs. So it looked like this one was pretty much done, and all Pittsburgh had to do was run out the clock. But on 2nd and 10 from the 36, Roethlisberger's intercepted by Brandon Marshall. So Brandon Marshall with the interception, and the Broncos once again had life. So now the Broncos had the ball on the Pittsburgh 41. They would bring this game to the 2-minute warning. And then coming out of the 2-minute warning, after an incomplete pass on 1st down, an incomplete pass on 2nd down, an incomplete pass on 3rd down, now it was 4th and 10. Once again, faced with a 4th down, this time from the Pittsburgh 41. They had to go for it. And Osweiler, another incomplete pass. And so that was 4 straight incomplete passes on this possession as the Broncos turned the ball over on downs. And the Pittsburgh Steelers take back over on their own 41. They just gave it to DeAngelo Williams on 1st down. Denver used their 2nd timeout. They give it back to Williams. And now the Broncos would use their 3rd timeout after a 4-yard run. So that was 3rd and 5. The Broncos had no timeouts. The ball on the 46. And the Steelers needing a 1st down to pretty much end this game. And Roethlisberger goes to who else but Antonio Brown for an 8-yard reception and a 1st down in Denver territory. And all that was left to do was for Big Ben Roethlisberger to take 3 knees in the victory formation as the Pittsburgh Steelers pull off the unlikely comeback, and they win this one at home in front of the fans there at Heinz Field to go to 9-5. They're 6-2 on the season at home. The Broncos are now 6-2 on the road, as the Steelers have 2 road games left. The Broncos have 2 home games left on the season. The Broncos fall to 10-4, and they fail to clinch the West. And Pittsburgh, with the victory, keeps themselves alive for the North title as they spoil the Bengals' chances of clinching the division. So not only did they stop the Broncos from clinching the West, they stopped the Bengals from clinching the North, and they also put themselves in the position, if the season ended today, the Steelers would be in as a wild card, but they're 2 games back with 2 games left in the North. So big win for Pittsburgh, and a heck of a comeback, especially in the second half. Pittsburgh outscoring Denver 21-0 after scoring 24 straight unanswered points, going back to that field goal at the end of the first half. And this is against the tough Denver defense, one of the better defenses in the NFL. But the offense did them no favors as they did not put up any points on the scoreboard in the second half after scoring 27 in the first half. The Broncos were rolling in the first half, but then the Steelers making those halftime adjustments, especially on defense, well, on both sides of the ball, really. Pittsburgh coming through big time in the second half, finishing out strong. They complete the comeback, and they hold on to win in the end with a couple of big defensive stops. In this game, Ben Roethlisberger, 40 for 55, 380 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. DeAngelo Williams had 14 carries for 26 yards and a touchdown. He also had 5 catches for 30 yards, giving him 56 total yards on the day. Antonio Brown, 16 receptions for 189 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Bryant had 10 catches for 87 yards. Wheaton had 6 catches for 62 yards and a touchdown. And for Denver, Brock Osweiler, 21 for 44, 296 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Ronnie Hillman, 14 carries for 48 yards. And Emmanuel Sanders had 10 catches for 181 yards and a touchdown. He also had a rush for 24 yards, which gave him 205 total yards on the day for Emmanuel Sanders against his former team. And Demaryius Thomas, 5 catches for 61 yards and 2 touchdowns. And for the kickers in this game, Boswell was perfect, 2 for 2 on the field goals, 4 for 4 on the extra points. McManus did not attempt a field goal. He was 3 for 4 on the extra points. And for the defense in this game, Will Allen had a forced fumble. Lawrence Timmons had a sack. Ryan Shazier had an interception. And Hayward with a sack for Pittsburgh. And for Denver, Bush had an interception, as did Brandon Marshall. And Malik Jackson had 2 sacks. And Ray had 1 sack. And then we look at the team stats. Pittsburgh with 28 first downs. Denver 20 first downs. And on third down, the Broncos 9 for 17, 52% on third down. The Steelers 7 of 15, 46% conversion rate on third down. And Denver went for it twice on fourth down, and they didn't convert either, as they turned the ball over on downs twice. Total net yards in this game, 385 for the Broncos, 377 for the Steelers. And on the ground, the Broncos netted 104. The Steelers just 23 yards netted on the ground, as the Broncos had almost 5 times as many rushing yards. But through the air, Pittsburgh netted 354. Although Roethlisberger was sacked 3 times, losing 26 yards, Denver netted 281 through the air, as Osweiler was sacked twice, losing 15 yards. Penalties in this game really cost the Broncos 12 penalties, 127 penalty yards, as the Broncos really shot themselves in the foot in this one. The Steelers also had quite a bit of penalties, 9 penalties, but just 63 yards. So 3 less penalties, but half as many penalty yards against the Steelers. And the Broncos, the turnovers were a problem. Of course, 3 fumbles, but they recovered 2 and lost 1. And then we look at the red zone. The Broncos were 100%, 3 for 3. The Steelers, 75%, 3 for 4. And time of possession, 31 minutes, 16 seconds for Pittsburgh, 28 minutes, 44 seconds for Denver. So Pittsburgh, it's a tale of 2 halves. The Broncos won the first half, the Steelers won the second half. The thing is, the game is decided in the second half, and the Steelers come away with the win. They finish out strong, and they dominated that second half. It was actually, decently close. It wasn't, the Broncos had the slight edge in the first half. They didn't quite dominate Pittsburgh, but the Pittsburgh Steelers did dominate that second half. But let me know what you think in the comments section below. Definitely interested to read your thoughts and opinions. Thank you very much for listening. It is greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a good day and had a great weekend, and enjoy all the sports.